So last time we did the nose and mouth, and what we're going to do now is just quickly go through the process of blocking out an ear. Um, this one isn't entirely perfect, but it's a quick one that we can use um, just so that when we find a character that we'd like to do a portrait of later, and I'll probably do a bunch of videos on how to do portraits or whatever, we can use it that way. This needs to be carved in a little bit back here. We're missing a little bit of the ear, but I was just sort of focusing on the overall structure, um, more for quick movement and stylized stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and open up where we left off. Um, let's see, number 3, mouth. So overall, the forehead's getting a little flat. So what you want to do is, ideally, you want to go structure-wise 3 even hemispheres from the nose down, this section here, then up here. That's going to be different from each character, but for now, I'm just going to pull this up. Now, the trick to getting not a lopsided head is, you see how I have a nice curve here? If I turn it, notice how that curve bellows in. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit this way. Curve it, turn it a little bit, pull it out, turn it a little bit, pull it out, turn it up a little bit, pull it out. And the highest point in the head is not the front. It actually sits right behind the ear. Now the nice thing about working in digital clay is that we can always move this stuff later. So now we want to just pull in that center cone. Let's flatten that out a little bit here. And pull this down. We get something like that. And then let's pull the head out in the back so we get a little more like this. All right, what I'm going to do is hold control and just mask out an area roughly where I think the neck will be. So like that. And then I'm going to hit W, and I want to hold control and click. And what that does is that inverts my mask. I'm going to pull that down, and that's going to be the neck of my character. So you can see there's that neck geometry that's come out of there. So I'm going to hit Q again. And what I want to do is go to subtool here, and I want to append a cylinder like this. And I'm going to alt click on it, and I'm going to press E. And if you hold shift as you're rotating it, notice that there's a little number system down here where it goes 0, 15, or whatever. What we're looking for is 90 degrees so that we know it's perfectly off. So I'm going to do that one more time because it resets once you're, um, there we go, 90. Okay, and then I'm going to shrink that down widthwise. I want to leave it pretty thick. The reason is if you leave it thin and you go to sculpt it, it'll actually pull the geometry from the other side in. You know what I might do is I might go ahead and just, I'm going to duplicate this and show you an example of what I'm talking about. So I'll duplicate this, hit W, move it up, and let's bring that, okay, that one's still there. And then I'm going to scale this in and make it a little bit thinner. Let's go a lot thinner. And now if I use my clay buildup or clay tubes or whatever, if I start to sculpt, you know what, I might have to Dynamesh this. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Let's go a little bit thinner so you could really see what I'm talking about. See how it's pulling against it as I'm sculpting? It starts to pull in that backing. So you want to make sure that it's pretty thick. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this subtool, or I'm sorry, that subtool that I was on. Let's make these both visible. And with this, I'm going to move it into the head. Now, the top of the cylinder, I want it to line up with the top of the brow line, and the bottom of the cylinder with the base of the nose. So I'm just going to bring it in like this, pull it down. Something like this. And then I'm going to rotate it. And when I go to rotate this, I actually want a big portion of this inside the head and the back, because what I'm going to be doing when I build out my head is I'm going to be carving into, and we're going to move this stuff around. Let me scale that down a little bit more, like that. I'm going to be doing a lot of carving and with that I can carve into the side of the head, and I don't want to carve into where the ear area is. All right, so let's scale this up a little bit. Now I'm sort of making it vertically longer than I am widthwise. So that's there. I want it to be roughly at the halfway point of the head. I'm gonna hit Q so I can see that a little bit better. So that looks fine. I probably have to give it a little bit more geometry back here, which is okay. So let's pull that forward just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I'm gonna move this stuff, so don't worry too much. So just try to roughly get it into an area like that. Then up at the top, I'm gonna go to Z plugin. I'm gonna go to Subtool Master, and I'm just gonna hit Mirror, and I'm gonna hit OK. And what I want to do is move the ears above the eyes, so I'm going to move that up, and then on this I'm going to merge down, so it's in one layer, and I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh that. Okay, so what I want to do is generic, just quickly shape this ear. So the base of the ear, because the ear is actually at an angle, I'm just pulling it in, push that in a little bit, and pull that back, and then pull this down. So you get something that looks like this. Just about roughly at the halfway point. Okay, and then from the front view, I'm gonna push the base in a great deal because the bottom of the ear is actually at an angle like this. Now we don't actually have a good cheekbone or the bones that lead into the ear canal, so it's gonna look a little bit weird until we add that. We also want to start adding in things like the muscles that surround the neck and that attach to the clavicle. So I'm just gonna roughly put some triangles in. So I'm gonna put a triangle here and then hold shift and smooth that out so we got the makings of a jaw. And then from the back of the head, I'm gonna wrap around a set of muscles like this, and I'm gonna hold Alt and just kind of carve in here, and that sort of forms the like kind of an Adam's apple. I'm gonna smooth this out a little bit as it comes up here. So just kind of forming out a chin. We're going to Z-remesh this, so you don't have to get too crazy with it. The next thing I want to do is just bring in the cheekbone and then the bones that lead into the ear canal. So something like this. Smooth that out as well. So we get something like that. And when you go to make your characters, you can adjust the ear stuff as much as you like. Maybe give this brow a little bit of clay as well. And don't worry too much if you're like, oh my god, what are you doing? Like right now, I'm just sort of accentuating the stuff that we had before. Like with my damn standard brush, the top of the eye line. Just bring some of those features back. Let's wrap that line around the nose again. And then with my clay buildup, just add some nostrils back in. Just cleaning all this up a little bit so that I don't completely lose it when I go to Z-remesh this. Oops. So what I'm doing also is I'm just kind of adding roughly where the skull is, because I've seemed to lost a lot of that through all the Z-remeshing. Okay, so that's fine. Let's focus on the ear now. So when doing an ear, you want to do more carving in than pulling out, because we're going to pull in that little Y area. So the top of the ear is like, it has sort of a number 9 shape, and that comes out like this. So before we do that though, I'm just going to hold Alt and start carving in a big chunk of, where the ear hole is going to be, which is right where that jawbone is, and all this other stuff. But I'm going to try to leave a little bit of spacing around this area here, where it looks like a number 9. So I'm just kind of really carving in there. Holding shift, smoothing it out. And you want something that kind of looks like that. Now inside of here where the ear hole goes, I'm going to really carve in there a good deal. And then what I can do is just pull the ear flap forward. And so that's where we get our ear flap. Now for that number 9 I was telling you about, it wraps around like this and around the ear. And I'm going to go ahead and carve this in a little bit too. And I'm going to move this out a little bit more. So we get something like this. Now the reason it looks so weird is because that little Y shape, which I'm going to mask out by holding control and just masking out that triangle that goes around like this and in. It actually, it sits underneath this ear flap. Control and Alt D unmasks. So I'm just gonna make sure I get like something more along the lines of this. Now watch how I do this. I'm gonna pull that out. So I'm gonna hit W and you'll notice it's in the middle. But if I do it this way, it's gonna pull, it's gonna do some weirdness. Even if I hold control and click, notice that it's moving it like that. What you wanna do is unlock it and then move this right where the ear is, then relock it. And when you go to pull it out, it'll pull it out like that. See that? So I'm gonna pull that out and forward a little bit and then unmask that. And then what I can do is add that flap up here, smooth this out a little bit because it covers it. I'm going to carve that in a little bit. Looks like I pulled it out a little bit too much, which is okay because if I Z remesh it right now, so grab my damn standard brush and just start to carve in. Looks like I still have clay buildup. There we go, my damn standard. Start to carve in that area, carve in up here, smooth this out. Gonna move that in a little bit. Just too prominent. Alright, let's go ahead and Z remesh this again. Alright, so now you can see, even from that Z remesh, we have now like all of those shapes, those nice little shapes that we need to kind of finish off the ear. So I'm going to slightly hold shift and kind of smooth this out a little bit. And then the ear itself, we also have a flap down here that covers it up going this way. So I'll smooth that out. Bring this around like this. Bring that 9 back in. Start adding a little bit more clay like this in here. Carve that out a little bit more. And then what I can do is start to shape this out a little bit better. So it's not as pronounced, right? So something like this. Looks like the remeshing was a little low, but that's okay. I can always sculpt back in those lips. And then I want to make sure that, because the ear is at an angle like this. So as I pull that back, I want to make sure that the angle of the jawbone, which goes like that, is in line with the ear itself. Shift that all forward a little bit. And I'm going to make this a lot less pronounced. Something like that. So let's do like a last little bit of polish here. So we want to make sure that this connects up here. So we got that all smoothed out. Let's make this a little bit wider. It looks a little bit too thin. I'm going to carve that in a little bit more. And let's see how this looks when we go to Z remesh this a little bit better. We go to ZRemesh that again. Um, I might pause it and just add the lips back in and stuff, but let's just kind of quickly. Looks like I lost a lot, but that's okay. The ears are sort of what's most important. When you go to ZRemesh it, so I might do, well, let's do 10 again, and then I'm just gonna hit ZRemesh. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. I mean, it needs a little bit more tweaking, but for a quick placeholder ear until we find which person we plan on doing a portrait of, it looks, that's not bad. We still got to do a little bit of background back here. All right, so that's fine for now.